Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. The Fab Four are back in the room. It's the NFC West show.
The world still hitting them corners and them lolos.
It's the call of the Cardinals.
There's only one team, and they're the Seahawks. One.
Still taking my time to perfect the beat, and I still got love for the streets. It's the D.R.E. representing for the gangsters all across the world. Still.
I forgot how terrible some of those are.
Really bad. I really forgot how bad those are. But it's great to see you guys. It's great to get everyone back in the room. It's been a while. Fab Four back together. And I figured, now the draft's done, free agency, a couple of the news is starting to break. I thought it's a good time to get back together, get ready for the season, with the off seasons coming with OTAs and some bits and pieces and mini rookie camps. And, it's been a while since we've all been in a room. So I thought, why not call us together? Let's have a draft review. Find out how we're all feeling after the trip to Kansas City and kind of get ready for the next season. Sounds like a plan. Jason, I'm going to start with you because general consensus being Arizona probably won't be first in this division for a while. So I'm going to start up with Arizona. How do you think you guys did at Kansas? I think you guys did a pretty damn fine, good job in the draft this year.
To your first statement, I don't think we're going to be first in the NFC West in 2023. However, moving forward, I wouldn't place any wagers on that.
Right.
But as far as the draft goes, I really put us up there. I think the best team probably in the draft or did the best in the draft would be the Eagles. But besides that, I really do think that we did phenomenal. The way Monty Osfort just finagled those picks and just multiplied them. It seemed like each day we would go into the next day with an extra pick and an extra pick and an extra pick. Not only did we draft, do I love our draft with the Paris and the offensive lineman and the second round pick, the BJ Ojulari, who many say remind him of Hassan Reddick. So that would be phenomenal. Same skill set, same bend, same size. But we also have 6 picks in the first 3 rounds next year.
Yeah, I think the deal you did with the Texans to get 2 first-rounders, which are going to be...
We have their first-round pick and our first-round picks, and I know this is going to...
They could be first and second pick, right?
Yeah.
It really could.
I was just about to say that, but honestly, they could... you guys would agree they could at least, in all fairness and honesty, be top 10 picks, 2 of them. So they have 2 picks in the top 10 or top 8. I couldn't have been happier with the way the draft worked for us, and the way that our future looks. This is what a true rebuild looks like. Sometimes you really got to scrap it, and they did just that, and they let a lot of people walk out that door, and but we got a lot of picks, and the way Monty, I have yet to seen a GM actually draft well. Well, Rod Graves, that was a GM before Steve Keim, drafted very well. Darnell Dockett, Larry Fitzgerald, Anquan Bolden, Adrian Wilson. But for Monty, this being his first draft, man, home run.
Yeah. I think, as you say, a first draft for your GM, and you nailed it. The trading back, everyone was a bit surprised, but back and forth, you get some players who can plug in. I think you're right. Johnson's going to be plugging in first, straight away. He's going to be really helpful for whomever you end up under center. He's going to, be a real bonus for you guys. But yeah, the way that you've set yourselves up to, I think it was a little soul searching. You're probably in the building. You've kind of gone, right, we need to properly rebuild. This is a rebuild period for us. And
yeah absolutely. I think and most Cardinals' knee-jerk reaction was Will Anderson. We want Will Anderson at number 3. And when that didn't happen, I think collectively as a fan base, we said WTF. Yeah. And then the way that it shaped out and it transpired and round 1 was over, and we're like, wait a minute, that's not so bad. And when round 2 ended, we're like, whoa. And then when you took a step back and looked at the whole draft, you're like, wow, that's pretty amazing. So again, I'm excited about going forward.
So with the first round picks that you'd have next year, and the fact that it's supposed to be a better quarterback draft, What
Beautiful.
what are you looking at?
Beautiful. Marvin Harrison Jr.
Marvin Harrison Jr. has got to go number one.
Personally am not looking for a quarterback. Personally, now this I speak for just myself, not all Cardinal fans, even though a majority of Cardinal fans do believe in Kyler. And listen, I've said it before, I'll say it again, and I'll say it many times. Kyler Murray is the most talented quarterback the Arizona Cardinals have ever had. And I loved Kurt Warner. I have a signed Kurt Warner ball behind me. I have a signed, Carson Palmer ball behind me. I love those two guys to death. But arm and legs.
Yeah.
Kyler Murray is just the throws he can make and what he can do with his feet just blows those two away. Now he just has to figure it out up here.
Exactly.
That's it. He's got to mature. He's got to become a leader, and he's got to realize at this level, everybody's awesome. So if he can figure that out, holy smokes!
Yeah, he's just gonna start watching those tapes, hasn't he?
He's gonna start.
He does. He really does.
Put down the game controller. Maybe
they say that as a joke, but Sam is exactly right. I mean, he does. He's got to start watching game tape.
And you wonder, and just think about it. You wonder if the injury and maybe in a weird way, the mortality of the injury. He suddenly realised that this is, it could be gone in a snap. Has it given him a wake up call? Will he come back and then put the time in at the tapes? Because physically he's rehabbing and whatever else. But
sure,
this is the time where he could be, as you say, really hammering those tapes, really doing game film, really doing all that stuff to come back.
Absolutely.
You hope he's taking that opportunity because, as you say, what the Cardinals have set up for a franchise QB like him this year, and as you say, Harrison Jr. has to be going number one pick next year. It's I can't. Probably actually it won't be. It'll be Caleb Williams because it'll be a QB who will always go.
It will be
right?
Caleb, and we'll be hopefully.
But we all know that really Harrison Jr. is probably the best player coming out of college next season.
Oh, sure.
And that's a terrifying thought.
The one thing with the Cardinals is and I suppose this will be you probably won't, but I think if you're sort of the Cardinals now and you're looking ahead to that draft and you're thinking realistically, arguably one of the better quarterbacks that will come out at this time is available. That could be something that they push to Murray to say, right, this is your time. You've got to prove yourself, or not necessarily word for word saying this to him, but subliminally thinking, well, I could be gone this next year.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to push Kyler Murray. I don't think he's going to feel that from the front office because I really do think the front office is sold with Kyler Murray being the quarterback of our future, and they should be sold. And we could really get a king's ransom for that. And I don't think they're going to pull another Josh Rosen and go back to back, or draft a quarterback number and then draft a quarterback again a couple years later. And if you go to Seattle and you look at Geno, and you go to San Fran and look at that 7th round draft pick quarterback, or that was drafted last year, that seems to be doing great. You don't need a world beater, right? You need a smart guy with a good arm that's got consistency in that offense that he's running, and he's got confidence, right? And if hopefully Kyler comes back and he has all that, and with that skill set, he that just pushes him over the top. So if we could put together a great package for Caleb, to give away Caleb Williams, that would be phenomenal, and that would be a dream come true.
There you go. Look at, worst case scenario for you guys. Look, the Texans bomb out this year, and you get their 1st round pick next year.
Man, I sure hope so. Yeah.
Right, and then somebody's going to be traded. Some QB needy team next season, if Jordan Love doesn't live up to hype, blah blah. There's going to be teams out there who are looking for Caleb Williams. So you guys could position.
Rams could be looking for a QB next year.
Well, the Rams could be looking for a QB. Honestly, the Seahawks would be looking for a QB. The Geno Smith.
I'm surprised the Hawks didn't take a QB in some of their Donko's free picks that they managed to smash out. But we'll get to you guys in a second. Sam, I know you like the Niners. You were enjoying the 1st round draft from afar.
Wait, were you guys there? Did you draft? Wait,
not until Saturday.
Oh,
yeah.
We don't.
That's 2026, right?
They don't draft in the first round.
Yeah, we don't do first
not?
round picks. I think we're allergic to them, to be honest.
I don't think you
but
got
then
any because
saying
you
that,
traded them away, didn't you?
Yeah, well, the last
They're pretty good
first round
picks,
pick,
pretty good guys.
I think the last first round we had was Jared Goff. So so, well, when you have that as a pick and it didn't exactly work out, you kind of think, oh, we don't.
You're still paying for him, though, aren't you?
No, this will be the last. I think last year was the last year. I think we're out of that.
Hey,
now-
you laugh all you want. He got you a Super Bowl.
He did.
Yeah, I got you a ring. I mean, you take it, right?
I'd take that every day of the week.
Absolutely.
So yeah, for us, this draft was a bit of an interesting one because we, very much like the Cardinals, came into the draft needing probably every single position going. I think the only we needed, kickers, punters, everything.
snappers,
We needed
Ball boys.
absolutely everything. I think the only thing we didn't really need was a wide receiver, and we still managed to pick one up. But I suppose going into that second day, I was half expecting us to do one of these sort of classic LA picks of someone flashy, and I think probably me and probably every single Rams fan out there had a little sigh of relief when we picked up Steve Avila in the first round. In the second round, at the start of the second round, which was possibly the most boring pick I think I've ever seen as your first pick in the draft. But he's going to be an interesting one because he's a guard that I think we're potentially looking at moving into a center position. So that could be interesting.
Last year, you needed bodies in your offensive line, and if you've got a guy who can play guard and center and whatever, that's what you desperately cried out for last year. You were decimated in that region, weren't you? So.
Is that the workaround since you guys didn't have the same people on personnel like ever the entire season? Or you should have one guy that can play all the positions. It's like you had a full line, or
we'll make sure as long as he's fit, he's playing somewhere.
Somewhere on that line, he'll be playing.
Doesn't matter where he is, he's going to be there. There was quite a few picks. We had 14 picks in total. Once we sort of kept trading back in a few of the later rounds. And I picked out a couple that I really liked. So I really liked the Byron Young pick, the linebacker from Tennessee in the third round. I've looked at a few things of him, and he looks like he could be a very, very interesting pick. He looks an absolute beast, to be honest, for that position. So I'm happy with him. The other one which I really, really liked was Travius Hodges Tomlinson, cornerback from TCU, which we got in the start of the sixth round. And he looks, he has a bit of an ego, and he gives me that sort of Jalen Ramsey vibe. He doesn't care what he's going to do. He is going to knock down walls if he has to get through people and stuff. So he's going to be an interesting position because it was, again, with trading Ramsey away, that was another position where we needed someone, and I think he'll bring in something quite interesting. The last one that and this is sort of going back to the fourth round, and again was a position we definitely needed someone in, was Stetson Bennett at quarterback. Now, obviously,
you come in as a Stafford mentor, right? You got to get an older QB in there to mentor your young QB. So right?
I think that, Stetson's 25. He's not exactly the youngest out of all of the QBs that came out of the draft. He was reportedly going to be going around 6th round, 7th round. They were talking of, and we got him early, again in the 4th round, and I think there was something about him. He has that sort of old style QB feel to him, that sort of sit in the pocket and just absolutely just tank the way through. So again, we need the protection, so that in order for obviously Stafford to stay fit, we need that protection. And if Stafford gets injured, Stetson needs that protection.
You can't write him off, though. He's won 2 national championships. He's kind of hung around, right, at a really good college team. So he's got something about him that, I know everyone's saying he's QB2, and as you say, if Stafford's back and his neck's fine and whatever else, then yeah, he will be. But it's not a bad QB2 to be sitting there.
No, I actually liked the pickup for you guys because play style is very similar too. So it's not like you have, you already have newer people on that offensive line. The last thing you need them to do is then also have to try and figure out how to use two separate schemes because your quarterbacks play different ways. So I actually really liked that pickup for you. Plus, it's later in the round, so even if it bombs, nobody gets fired over guessing wrong in the 4th round.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's a good point. Actually, I think it's a really sort of interesting thing is that when you look at the other QBs we had before, I mean, Bryce Perkins was a mobile quarterback. Jonathan Wolford was crap, but he was also more of a mobile quarterback. Even when we brought in Baker, he was a bit more of a mobile quarterback than sort of what Stafford we used to with Stafford. So
You kind of see a trend here: mobile and tough. Just tough QBs.
yeah, so I think
it's kind of what they needed because they had no offensive line to protect them, right?
Yeah.
Get out of the way and take the hits because you're going to get hit.
And and unfortunately, that D line in San Francisco got better this offseason, which is horrible. I mean,
yeah. So we're going to need.
I hated
much
seeing that.
as we can get. So I'm hoping. I mean, we only took 2 offensive linemen in the draft, but I think in the free agency we picked up about 4. So I'm sure we'll have enough bodies there. But very much like the Cardinals, it's a bit of a as Snead has put it, it's a remodeling rather than a rebuild. And I think from all the noise coming out at the moment is that McVay is planning to stay beyond this year, potentially looking at just basically seeing out his contract, just so he gets, because I think there's a lot of sort of noise around the fact that he didn't want to leave the team in the state that it was and just leave it for someone else. He wants to be able to walk away with someone to step in ready to take that team over to maybe take it to the next level.
That's right. You don't want it to be trash. You want to light that dumpster on fire before you walk out.
Yeah, you want it to be really bad. Yeah.
So it's either completely bombed out or make it at least a little bit better. And I think he's going for the setting it up for something better and maybe taking a different approach to the let's sign everyone we can possible and scrap all the picks and cap space that we have and start afresh and try a new model.
It's worth a try. As you say, you've tried it one way, you've been successful. As we've all said, you got the ring out of it, so you'll take that. You'll give up your 7 years of first rounders and whatever else because you can never take away that Super Bowl championship. So it's a trade that's worked, and it was a methodology that worked for you guys, but it could only last so long. Yeah. And I think now, as you say, the remodeling has to. You've got to look longer term now because you've got that fancy new stadium, you've got your pennant on the wall, you've got all the stuff that's there. So it's time to make LA your home properly because I don't think it's been that. Yeah, you still need to turn the fans around. So I think a build time is going to be important for the team.
I think
it's funny. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in terms of sort of like you're saying that building that home and that, I think it's still. I mean, we're still. It's still early days with that. I still think there's the legacy of the St. Louis move and everything. I think that's still playing a massive part. I mean, every time you come and the Niners or even Seahawks or that come to our stadium, it's 60-40, 70-30 in their favor, and we're not making it. We're not making it like the other stadiums in terms of our home. So. Even though, which is ironic that our sort of phrase is whose house, Ram's house, and it never really is. So.
It never really is if the NFC are coming into town, though. It's a bit of an odd one. It's like Ram's house when you look round and it's all red and you think, it's a hard sell that.
No, it was funny. I was looking at a graphic and it was Stafford for the Rams, and then it was Goff and the 7 picks they got, right? And they're like, who won this? And it's like, well, from this graphic, I feel like you have to put the Lombardi on there with Stafford, right? Like you went and got the ring. So unless Detroit goes and wins a ring, no matter how it shakes out, LA wins that trade. I mean, the ring trumps all, right? Now, I mean, it's a bummer if your team falls apart and is relatively irrelevant after that, but you still got the championship. So I mean, you can't fault them for it.
And also considering what the Lions did this offseason, which I know it's not particularly relevant. I don't know what they seem to have lost their way and traded away an awful lot of.
Well, and then they had players suspended and fired, and like there's some chaos there. But at the end of the day, it's Detroit, so you kind of
Detroit. It comes with the territory, right? It comes with this is Detroit. It just when it looks like it might be coming good, we're just going to shoot
turning around. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just and trading for a running back that they could have got by trading back and then up for it. It's like, what are you doing? And
it was weird.
Anyway. That was such a weird sort of down up thing, and then still take a running back that you could have got when you traded back to 12. Anyway, yeah. So Niners was an interesting one. Obviously, still paying for the Trey Lance, not seeing anything for it. I like the Penn State safety. He's got a ball hawk Hufanga-esque look to him. He looks like a player. I know some of the stats and some of his measurables. Everyone's saying, he ran a slow 4.40 and
because you guys really needed a defender really bad. That
really badly because really desperately needed to strengthen that defense. Even though the best thing that we did was weaken the Eagles' defensive line by taking Hargrave.
That hurt my heart because I thought for sure he was coming to Arizona.
I didn't think we had the money for him, quite frankly.
I don't understand where your printing press is. I don't know where you're getting all.
I think we borrowed it from LA.
Like the Rams, the cap is just a myth.
Yeah.
So
I think there's a lot of dodgy years at the back end of his contract, quite frankly. It's the only way it's going to work out.
Been learning from the Saints. They always seem to fix their team. Just I don't know how they manage it, to be honest. I think that last year they were minus 76 million over the cap.
Yeah, how does that even
somehow managed to get under?
How can any team be that? It's crazy, isn't it?
And they weren't even close to competing.
They weren't even.
Like the Cardinals beat them. That's how bad they were at home.
I mean,
we haven't won a home
they had
game.
like 5 different QBs in the end of it, didn't they? They had Winston and Dalton and
Andy Dalton.
Winston, and then he lost the job to Dalton and Winston never got it back. And then you have, does it Taysom Hill is a tight end who plays at quarterback but doesn't?
Yeah. I think Bo was the backup in week 17.
Yeah, pretty much,
right? Yeah.
And anybody who turned up with a uniform was kind of roped into.
I feel like they could have went with one of the peanut guys. Those guys are pretty accurate. Get a pretty good toss.
Could have gone with
they don't have a bad roster either. I mean,
you got to think Olave's there. They picked up some decent draft.
Olave is really good.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a top. To be fair, they've got a top 5 defense. They just don't have a quarterback.
Why didn't you guys draft like 3 or 4 quarterbacks the way you guys go through them like toilet paper? I feel like we need like 10 dudes on the roster.
But fortunately, we've done our QB business. We've got our 2 starters who are both out injured and both questionable. Great start. And then we picked up an ex-first rounder from Carolina. I like the pick.
Darnold's going to kill it for you guys.
I like the pick. I think, and as I said to one of the 49er Faithful shows, we picked Darnold up because he knows how to play Steve Wilkes' defense. He's going to be on our practice squad and he's going to make our defense better because he's seen Steve Wilkes' defense for years. So he's going to play that practice squad and our defense and, the scout team or whatever else. He's going to be seeing our defense and he's going to say, I know this read. I know what you're doing. So he's kind of I'm looking at it from he'll make our defense better. He's not going to be beneficial in the offense potentially.
Well, I read an article yesterday talking about Sam Darnold, this being a tailor-made offense for him, and they wouldn't be surprised if he was a starter week 1. Which,
he's supposed to.
I think you found your quarterback in Brock Purdy. I really, really like Purdy. I don't know. It's everything. It's the way he performed at the end of the season. Nothing seemed to faze him. His S2 score, that came out to light this offseason. I'm like, holy cow, the way he processes information. He's going to be ready. I don't understand what you're still doing with Trey Lance. I really don't. Except the fact you're trying to save, the egg on your
a saving face moment.
Exactly. It's like cut your losses. You could probably still get something for him. But man,
because he's been hurt the whole time. Like fourth round,
yeah.
optimistic. I feel like you have to let him play some games. If you're going to try and move him, it's got to
try to get that value up.
Yeah, just get something for him. I mean,
Yeah.
as much as you gave away, especially because you're still paying for it, I feel like you need something in return. And since he's played 4 games in 2 years, like that's not a great selling feature to another team.
That sounds horrible when it comes out of your mouth, like 4 games in 2 years.
4 games, 2 years, yeah. It's horrible when you think, and it is. And I think they were shipping him. I think they'd have been stupid not to be listening to calls and taking, seeing if there was any interest. And I think they probably just went
free agent quarterbacks.
The Lions.
Yeah, probably.
The Saints.
The Saints could have taken it. But what were they offering if they were offering a compensatory third? And you can't take that when you've sold a house on a guy for 3 first rounds.
And you still don't know what he is. He could be the guy. You have no idea.
Yeah.
But going back to 4 games in the last 2 years have just been it's bad tape. It's really bad tape. He's not playing good football on tape.
They don't have anything to go off. I mean, they have nothing for 2 years. So
3 years. He didn't even play his last year at NDSU. I mean,
yeah. So I mean,
we haven't even got that.
You never know. He could come back and he could end up, ousting Purdy, and actually Purdy ends up just being your backup quarterback. And it. And I think he needs to be given at least a chance. And if you're not going to then keep him, he needs to be given a chance to be sold.
I feel like he's been given multiple chances.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was his team last year, right? I mean, it was supposed to be his team. There was the washout in Chicago that you can't really take anything from. And then you got, I think, less than a quarter against you guys, Bo, and that was it. It was like,
that was it.
That was it. It's like, what does that give us? It gives a quarter and a half of really bad, sort of running it up the middle football, and a game against the Texans when nothing was on the line with one big throw, and that's kind of the game tape. It's like, what could you?
To be honest, I don't really know too much about Trey Lance before everything that's going on, but he comes across, at least sort of from what the limited appearances that probably me and everyone else has seen of him, he is that more sort of, that mobile quarterback who's a bit similar to Justin Fields in the sense that he sort of is that running back-esque quarterback.
Yeah, but he has the Tua durability.
But then obviously,
he's shown that, right? He didn't start very many games in college, so it's not like he put a lot of tape in college either. I mean, he started, 12, 14 games total in college. So, I mean, there wasn't a lot there. They were definitely drafting the potential of Trey Lance. And, the most frustrating thing is the 49ers put all their eggs in the basket and really, I don't want to say mortgage the franchise because look at them now, but they really traded a lot of draft commodity to move up and take Trey Lance, swung and missed big time. I mean, big time. And now they got this kid, Brock Purdy, and they had, in my opinion, the worst draft of the 4 NFC West teams. And we're going to go into next year once again, and they're head and shoulders, I think, the best team in the NFC West, with Seattle being that number 2. And it's so frustrating as an NFC West foe, Cardinal fan, like, man, you guys swung and missed a quarterback. You draft a 7th rounder. You don't really have a very good draft. And somehow you got better. Like, how is that possible?
You got to actually give credit to Jimmy G. Like, the starts that he had, he found ways to win games. Right?
He found ways to lose games too. Let's be honest. Let's not forget the Broncos game.
Sure, but when you figure he was your starter, then he was the backup and came back in and whatever. You guys have been in that championship game year in and year out the last few years. And he was your guy. So whether you like him or not, for whatever reason, he was able to get the job done. And when you mortgage the farm to pick up a guy that doesn't ever play, you got to give the guy some credit for at least coming in and winning games for you.
Imagine if they didn't do that. Imagine if they used that draft commodity somewhere else, like where they would be.
Decent running back.
Yeah.
But you've got one now, haven't you?
We got one now, but we could have got Saquon.
I think it's one of those things that it was, like you say, it was a big risk to take, and they took it. And it hasn't paid off. luckily you've managed to fall in a position where you actually now are,
But
I would
Sam,
say
most
for at
teams do that. Most teams swing and miss like that on the quarterback, the most important position of football, and it sets them back years.
Yeah.
I mean, years. Somehow the 49ers did it and just
Got
pivoted
away with it. Just
and
somehow
got away with it.
So one thing I will give the Niners a ton of credit for is their coach development, which is why they ended up with so many extra picks this time, because a lot of their minority coaches got picked up in other places in large capacities, and you get compensatory picks for that, which is, I mean, it's how you guys ended up with 11 picks this time.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere. I
It
mean,
was
you look at it, and the
compensatory,
coaching tree is kind of out there now. You look at it, you've got, Shanahan's coaching tree is just permeating across the NFL. So
Well, not only is coaching true, but I think, and this is, in my opinion, this is the reason why you're still there, and you will be there with this coaching staff and this GM, is because you draft right. You draft him the inside out. Everybody wants to give Howie Roseman and the Eagles credit, but listen, the Eagles haven't done it consistently like San Fran has done it. San Fran consistently drafts from the inside out. They consistently draft that boring offensive lineman and defensive lineman. It's not sexy. It's not pretty. Nobody's excited about it. But year in and year out, that's what you do. You draft from the inside out, and you're there every year. And that's how you build stability, and that's how you build sustainability, right? You're there for a long time doing stuff like that. You're not successful when you draft these flashy, fast hot rod guys, these Lamborghini wide receivers, running backs, cornerbacks in the first round. That's not really going to get you very far. So kudos to the Niners, and it's sickening.
I mean,
we got lambasted a little bit.
I was going to say, you did draft a kicker in the 99th pick, so.
We had to. Robbie Gould's going out, right? Robbie Gould.
They really did.
We had a need. There was one kicker in a draft, right? There's one kicker in a draft that was worth taking. He was not coming back to us. It was a position we had of need, and it was like, it's a third round. It's going to be expensive, but
you didn't have a fourth round.
Kicker. We had no choice. We had no fourth. We batched up the fourth round to trade up for the Penn State safety. So we had to take him there, because we knew he was not coming back. Because either, the Rams would have taken him, the Patriots would have taken him. He was not coming back.
Exactly.
So it was like, yes, it was potentially a reach, but he was the number one kicker in the draft, and that was our number one need. We knew Robbie was getting paid.
Well, and of course, you're replacing realistically a future Hall of Fame kicker, realistically. So you need a guy that's competent back there.
Yeah. And we need a guy who can kick it out the end zone. I don't hate the pick, but I mean, and also, what was becoming more and more obvious and more and more apparent. Yes, Robbie will get you your 30, 40-yard field goals, but he couldn't kick it out the end zone. He was giving, distance on kickoffs and stuff was starting to become a potential risk. And, you look at the NFL now, most kickoffs just sail out the back of the end zone, don't get returned. The return game's kind of dead. With us, Robbie didn't have that. So, we brought a guy in who can clear the field. I've got no problems with it. Yes, it's a high pick for a kicker, and yes, it can blow up in our faces. Position of need, best kicker in the draft. We have to get in there. Again, we were blessed with the luxury of all of those compensatory picks. As you say, we could patch them all up, get some. I thought we'd have patched more to go more higher, but obviously they had their picks. They had their guy that they wanted, and they went and got him.
Well, again, when you draft right, 70, 80% of the time, you can make picks like that and do things like that and take risks like that. And if it doesn't pan out, you're still doing things right in the draft 70, 80% of the time where, you can do things like that. Whereas the Cardinals do things right about 10% of the time in the draft, and it's never panned out.
Never. And what I did find out is there was a depth of offensive linemen, and we didn't take any. I know we've picked up a few undrafted free agencies and stuff like that, because I thought we kind of needed some bodies there. Colton McKivitz seems to have won that right tackle, right guard spot, which, we had to let McGlinchey go. There's no way he was getting paid from us. And Denver gave him a bucket load of money. So I thought we'd take more offensive linemen, but we didn't. We kind of spread it around a bit more. But I guess, in the front office we trust, as you say, Jason, because they've got it right. for the last 4 or 5 years, and it looks like they've picked up a few gems, a few ones that will potentially come good. I think some of the later runs, Ronnie Bell looks like an interesting one late round. I quite like the TCU linebacker as well. He's got some athleticism to him. He looks like a Dre Greenlaw-esque type of player, and I think we're losing Al Shair, so he's probably a plug sort of replacement for that guy. So again, they drafted for need, which is a blessing. To be able to look there and go, we need a kicker, let's go draft a kicker, rather than, as you say, the Cardinals or maybe the Rams who are remodeling and just need bodies, you need everything. At least we could pick and choose, hey, we need a safety because we know Gibson's only signed a 1-year contract, so we'll go and get his replacement for the following year. A lot of them are not this year sort of players, they're 1+ years, which is how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
I've got to say, I was surprised we didn't pick up more offensive linemen after last year, but we picked up 3 linebackers. So,
But it was an odd draft,
production, huh?
It was an odd draft though, because I think Bo, you mentioned it on a show earlier on. There was the top 10 sort of best of the bunch, and then there was just lots of good players from pick 14 to pick 97. There wasn't like that massive drop off. You've got first rounders and then fall off the cliff. There was that top sort of elite echelon of top 10, and then everybody else was just good. It was just a good deep draft where you could get good picks in the third, fourth. That's what was interesting this year.
I think that's why we saw a lot of some good players drop quite far in the draft. I mean, I think everyone expected Will Levis to go top 5.
Yeah, that's a great pick, to be honest. Where he's ended up, I thought they've done really well. Yeah.
Had Hendon Hooker not come out of college with an ACL injury, there was talk he could have been again a top 7 pick. So sometimes it works out to play the long game, especially in these. And I mean, with everything, I think the Purdy revelation of having the very last pick has worked out to show that it doesn't matter where you draft someone, as long as you train them well and you fit them in the right scheme.
Well, I somewhat disagree. I think it matters that they get in the right landing spot. And I think Geno Smith is a great example that goes number 1 overall, goes to a couple different places with good coaching staff, but was never the right spot. Then he lands in Seattle with a great coaching staff, great quarterback coaches, and an offensive scheme that's been around for a while, learns from Russell for a couple years, and then gets inserted into an offense where he doesn't necessarily have to be that guy. He's got a run game. He's got 2 dynamic wide receivers, and it was just a great fit for him. And all of a sudden, what was Geno Smith? Geno Smith was a top 10, top 8 quarterback last year. So I really think it does depend on fit and scheme, and
for sure.
You just gotta have the right landing spot. So who knows?
Yeah, I think what Sam's saying is that first round QB, you must have that first round QB. I think the revelation that Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, being last pick of the draft and still being good enough and whatever else has kind of meant that the comfort level of taking Levis in the. Did he go second round? He went second round, right?
He went second round, yeah.
Second round, and and Hooker a bit later on, and Stetson Bennett. You're not. It's not so bad now. It's like, hey, and you think back, Tom Brady went round 6. So it's not. You don't have to get number 1 guy.
It doesn't always work for a lot of players, but actually, like you say, if the scheme fits and the team fits and everything, and the coaches are good enough to be able to train them and coach them in the way that they should be, a 5th round pick, a 6th round pick is just as important as a 2nd round pick.
Sure.
It can be. Sure.
Yeah, right. Russell Wilson was a 3rd. He came out, balled out. So I mean, it's definitely it comes down to fit. Sometimes the later rounds absolutely ends up working out better for a quarterback. It's one of the things to worry about with Richardson going to the Colts is he's forced to be the guy immediately. And
Stroud as well.
What's that?
Stroud as well is going to be.
So Stroud, I think, is more polished. Like he's more ready to go. Same with Young, right? Bryce Young is he's a polished quarterback. He'll be able to go. Like he's going to struggle because he's a rookie, but there's not like fundamental issues with their games. Whereas with Richardson, there's an accuracy problem, especially on the layups, which is why I was thinking he would have been a really good fit to come to Seattle because of their player development, to be able to sit behind a guy like Geno and learn. But going to the Colts, it's Minshew in front of him, right? So like realistically, he's probably going to start within the first couple of weeks. So he's not going to get that time to work on an accuracy.
Which I think would be a mistake. Yeah,
I believe it is too. I mean, Josh Allen had the same thing, but he had the luxury of sitting behind Fitzpatrick for a little bit to work on that accuracy.
Jameis Winston, right? That's another one that's exactly what I'm thinking. He comes out of South Florida.
I said at the start of the draft.
Mahomes got to sit behind Alex Smith. Smart quarterbacks in front of him. They make smart decisions. You get to work on your accuracy a little bit. And I think AR is probably not going to get that opportunity. So I feel like he's probably going to suffer because of this draft just based on fit.
Yeah,
I think he came into that draft with a lot of hype. People saw him in that combine and in various other combines, saw that he had a big arm on him, that he could, with no pressure could do it. But I always thought there was this massive overhype about him, and actually he needed to be. I had him going to Seahawks as that pick because I thought, like you said, it was the perfect situation for him.
And that would have been a great pick. Yeah,
learn under Pete Carroll, who arguably is one of the best coaches in the league. To learn under Geno and everything.
Don't say that.
We all think it, we don't say it out loud.
Yeah, but I just think that would have been perfect. And like you say, him going to the Colts, I think could potentially. I don't want to say it's going to ruin his career, but it could stunt his career
for sure.
More than another team.
Yeah, I think you're right. He will start, as you say. He's going to be the face of that franchise. He's going to be the second. He's going to be the new Manning and whatever else, and that's going to just put so much pressure on him. Where, I think if he fell to the Seahawks at 5, you'd have snapped him up absolutely, because it would have been a dream pick.
Oh, for sure.
And we haven't even got into the Seattle picks yet. I mean, you guys drafted really well anyway.
Yeah, let's talk about your draft. Oh, you guys drafted phenomenal. You really
we had a great draft. And, it was funny because it definitely went different than I thought it was going to. As we were going into it, I was used to Seattle not participating in free agency. And, as a fan, you're just sitting there like, God, please do something.
Just sign somebody. Do something.
But just somebody off the street. It doesn't even matter.
They got burned by the Jimmy Graham and the Percy Harvins, and they're like, no more.
No more. Don't put that away. Yeah.
But this offseason, they were extraordinarily active in free agency. And it allowed them to do some different things in the draft that I wasn't ready for them to do. I was figuring they were going to go with a Will Anderson, a Jalen Carter, or AR-15, right? Depending on which one of those dudes fell.
Yeah.
And once they started drafting signing defensive linemen and linebackers in free agency, I was like, oh, I wonder where it is we're going now, because that need isn't so glaring as it was.
Right.
So they get a really good D end from the Broncos, and I forget where we picked up the other one offhand, and then they picked up Wagner comes back, and they grab another linebacker in free agency. They re-sign the best linebacker we had. They bring in a safety from the Jets in Julian Love, and so all of a sudden you're like, okay, well now these holes that were horrendous
are being patched up a little bit. Yeah.
And we haven't made it to the draft yet. So now it's like, okay, we've cleared some spot in the cap. We've added some talent in areas of need. Now we get to go into this draft a little bit freer without, going in saying we have to get an edge rusher immediately. And you go in and you pick up a cornerback. So now you have Woolen on one side, Pro Bowl first year. You got Diggs in the secondary there as a safety, Pro Bowl, a third time he was in the Pro Bowl. Now you're going to add another top flight corner to that. You add a Pro Bowl safety from the Jets with Julian Love. It's like, okay, well now all of a sudden the secondary, every single position back there is fast and really good at what they do. And you've already started shoring up your front seven. Then you move on and draft 3 more defensive linemen. It's like, okay, well, now you're not going to be able to just run over this defense anymore. And
which is what the weakness of you guys did last year, wasn't it?
Sure, absolutely.
Horrendous. It was horrendous. Like 3/4 of the year, they were giving up 200 plus yards a game. It's absolutely insane. But then they also brought in a center, right? Because we also had a hard time creating rushing lanes in the offensive line. So the tackles were an absolute home run in last year's draft, but the interior offensive line couldn't open holes for Walker. And so they bring in a safety, and then they bring in another safety and a guard. So now you're starting to look at an offensive line that's going to be able to get Walker to not necessarily have to break tackles behind the line of scrimmage all the time.
Those little lanes are going to be open and established,
Exactly. So now you're looking at an offense that can really use that slot receiver that we picked up in Jigma, because you have DK, who's an absolute beast. You have Lockett, who is probably one of the most sure-handed receivers in the league. And then you get to drop in Jigma into the slot. So you're not asking him to do too much as a rookie, but he's that outlet guy. He runs really clean routes. He's that kind of Doug Baldwin size, has really good hands. So I feel like they nailed that first round based on, what they needed. I gave the Hawks draft an A overall, really through the entire thing. One thing that was really funny was they kept getting downgraded because of their late second round running back pickup. Right?
It's a great pickup.
Right? Like, it made no sense to me, because he is a fantastic change of pace back. He's a big bruiser style, awesome complement to what Walker does, is good enough to challenge for that starting role to begin with. And then when you look back at the fact that the week 1 starter as a running back hasn't made it through the season without hitting IR since 2014, I don't know why they were getting downgraded for picking up a running back. I mean,
who got behind Walker anyway?
Charbonnet's now the guy, isn't it?
Is it Dallas or? I have to look. I don't remember offhand.
I mean, that's the thing, right? You'd have to go where at least other teams would go. Well, that
you traded away Penny, didn't you?
There was literally
got Penny
roster at running back anyway, so they were going to have to get someone.
Right. Yeah.
So why not get it? Why not get a stud?
I mean, as you say, the first 2 picks just insane. I was just looking at it going, no, I mean, your secondary now is Legion of Boom-esque, right? It's got that potential to kind of grow into.
Scary.
So that's going to help our front 7 be better, because those guys are going to be able to trail everyone. Because, really, who are you going to throw on? So we are making you hold on to the ball an extra second. Well, now, even if our defensive line has to work some things out as a unit, they have that extra second to get to you. And then that backside gets to feast a little bit, because if there's quarterback hurries, say they don't even get home, but they're moving you off your spot, well, that's turnover potentials. And
that's what we did last year. We shored up. Our cornerbacks weren't great. We've got the guy from Kansas City. He made our secondary so much better, which led to, as you say, the coverage sacks, and allowed our D line to just pin their ears back and go, right, the guys back there are okay now. We can just get after this guy, and that's why we had the number 1 defense.
Extremely similar, yeah. I mean, that's what San Fran does, right? They play a lot of base defense. They play man press coverage, and they just play you very straight up. They know that front 7 can beat you 1-on-1, and that's kind of what you guys are doing in Seattle. You've got the back 4 now. They can play with anybody. Now the front 7 can eat, because they can play, man up. You don't have to blitz as much. It really helps you. And you got a quarterback in Geno Smith. They can. I don't know if you guys run RPOs over there or what, but I mean, giving Geno Smith the opportunity to call the plays at the line of scrimmage, or the run, the pass option, and having the ability to have a quarterback who can get the ball to that third guy, that third 4-3 if he has to, it's just phenomenal. So.
Yeah. The Njigba pick just terrible. That was the one that got me. And the Witherspoon pick, that's a great pick. But then when you pick him, I was like, damn, that's going to make our lives.
And the thing with Njigba as well is, Lockett's now 29. So once you decide to move him on, you've already got a ready-made wide receiver 2 there. I know he's not the same type of player as Lockett, but you essentially have that long-term wide receiver too.
For sure. And I mean, the good thing with Lockett, like it's good and bad. So it's good because he has quite a few years left in his NFL career. And it's not based on sheer speed because he runs incredibly clean routes.
Great routes.
But the thing that is, it's great and it's irritating at the same time is he catches the ball and goes to the ground, right? So it's always a catch. He never takes the big hit. So he doesn't generally get hurt unless there's some, accidental contact type of thing. But it's going to allow him to be able to be on the field longer than normal.
Yep.
But the irritating part is he goes to the ground all the time. And you're like, man, like yards after catch would be super cool right now. But, it's a business decision. I get it.
Because he's not a big
gives you that
frame guy.
No, he's not a big guy.
And, that was a knock on Larry Fitzgerald for the first 4 or 5 years is what, he could catch everything coming his way, right? But he would run out of bounds or get down 2 to 3 yards early. And then you got the juxtaposition, and you got him playing opposite of Anquan Bolden, who just happened to be a linebacker playing wide receiver, right? Who would take on the entire defense. They would take the entire defense and a couple coaches to take him down, right? So you have these two guys. Larry would catch the ball, and he'd run out of bounds 7 yards early, and we'd get so frustrated.
Yep.
And Larry had that body. So about year 5 or 6, he started learning to take that contact and gaining more yards. But yeah, you're right. He just doesn't have the body, doesn't have that build.
No,
and you're going to appreciate that because Kyler does that. And at first, I didn't like it, but now I really do like it because he's like,
yeah, no, you got him.
So
because
and they've got DK on the other side, who's an absolute monster. So
absolutely, he's bigger than all 4 of us combined.
And he's quicker.
That's the whole adage, your best ability is availability, right? So, I mean,
Yep,
if you're a small
absolutely.
guy, get down, live to play another day. So, I mean, I get it. But when you're a fan, just being a fan, you're like,
sure. Get that first down. That's 1 yard. Yep.
But yeah, no, overall, I really liked the draft. We did end up picking up a 7th round running back also. So they rounded out that running back room pretty well.
Yeah. But as you say, that.
I was going to say, I think as an overall, I think the NFC was drafted really well.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you try and compare other divisions, I think I would probably say ours was one of the better of the divisions in terms of what
Most
they got and the value.
Sure,
yeah, consistency-wise, I think we all drafted well. We all got needs filled, or you all kind of hit the mark on what you had available.
Yeah, that being said, like I can't think of anybody that really had a terrible draft just because of how deep the talent pool was. I mean,
Right.
even when you were drafting in the 4th and 5th round, the guys that were getting picked up are solid guys. I mean, it was just a really deep talent draft. So outside of just kind of some weird head scratching moments, like, the Patriots having a really weird middle of their draft.
They do.
A kicker, a punter, and 3 guards. Because I made the joke during the draft. I was like, are they going to extort other teams to get a guard? They were just going to draft every single guard and then sell them off. Like it didn't. I wasn't really sure what they were doing in the middle of the draft. But their first couple rounds were solid. So but the middle, you were just like, what are they doing?
It was very mixed up, wasn't it? Yeah.
They picked up probably one of the more interesting picks as well in Keishon Butte, because everyone knows. I mean, he went a lot later than I think when we were first initially talking about the draft. He went a lot later than what anyone else expected, and I think there was a lot of that was to do with his personal attitude and his and all of that. But if he can sort out that attitude, that pick could be phenomenal for them.
Yeah. And if there's any coach who can kind of knock the attitude out of a player, it's Belichick, right? And get them to toe the line. Yeah, but it's interesting. You do look around and you think, B's, C's, maybe you don't see anything going like that's so horrendous. You've kind of screwed the pooch there and completely missed. I don't think any team whiffed.
No, I think as I've been working on, I'm putting together draft grading, right? And I think the worst one I had was a C plus for Detroit. And, and some of that is I feel like they ended up having to kind of draft for some needs that they shouldn't have needed because of suspensions and stuff. So like they just kind of had a weird draft. It wasn't necessarily bad. Like they got good talent. It was just kind of strange. And, I had them as like a C plus, and I think that was my worst grade so far. So, I mean, again,
let's be honest, you really don't know until about a year or two later how that draft class pans out. I mean, I say
initial reaction, really.
Yeah, in our division, I feel like we had the best draft kind of by default because we had the most holes to fill. Like, if we just drafted a guy, odds are he filled a hole. Like, I think in the 7th round, we drafted a secretary, and she filled a hole. Like, we needed a secretary to fill the few calls we get a year. And so, I think it's going to be a great season. Contract, and I don't think the Niners did that well in the draft, but they had the best offseason, I think, of the four of us. So, for sure. I think it's going to be a fun year. I think, everybody's going to be chasing the Niners. I think the Seahawks are going to be chasing them pretty close.
I think Seahawks have got very close now. They're close.
Yeah, the Cardinals, we'll squeak out maybe 4 or 5 wins this year. And I don't know about them Rams. I'm not sure.
The Rams are the unknown, right? They could be a...
You know what? You guys could win 2 games or you could win 11 games. Like, I don't know. I got to see.
Once we know how that offensive line it plays out, and we know whether Stafford's fit or not, then we'll know a bit more. I think until I know there's talk that he's been ready to go for months, but nobody knows how bad that injury is until he starts taking maybe a couple of hits, and he starts getting really back into the swing of things. I've said for a while, if we can keep him clean, I think we'll have a relatively good season. I don't expect it to.
What does that mean, though?
Yeah, I had you guys as a 7 or 8 win team.
Yeah,
that's better than us.
I had you guys as a 4-win team.
Yeah,
I'd like a 9-8. If we could get a 9-8, then it'd be a great season. It'd be a great season based on
that's where it's going to be. That's where it's going to be tough because this year
NFC West is hideous. Oh, it's murderous schedule though we've all got.
Well, and because of the other divisions that we play, it's just a tougher schedule overall. We don't have the South to go beat up on, even though we lost all 4 games to them somehow. But you don't have those relatively cupcake games. You're playing Detroit, and you're playing Dallas, and you're playing Philly, and I mean you're playing solid teams this year. And so I think that's actually where your guys' win count will drop, is because you're not playing, the Bucks and the Saints, and you don't have those easier games on the schedule this time around. Otherwise, I would think that both of you guys would have better years, even with Colt McCoy getting the start. But if you're playing a juggernaut,
it might be David Blau. Colt might be out week 1.
It could be huge.
Like that's not going to go great, right? But if you get to play him a little later in the year, I still give you guys a shot. Same with the Rams, right? Like if you play him early, that may not be awesome, but if you get to play him a little bit later, your team starts to gel. Yeah, I mean, that could be a win.
I think ours is all dependent on. I mean, we've got such a young team now with all of the, these new rookie picks and
well, that's what I mean. That's what I mean by that. Is it allows your team to gel.
Yeah. So we if we were only to win, it's going to be an interest. Well, I don't want to say an interesting. It's going to be a weird season for us because it could, like you say, it could be we finish bottom of the pile and we get the first pick of the draft, or it could be that we, finish like
middle of the road,
16th or something really random and just obscure. So,
But again, you still class that as a bounce back from the horrendous year that you just had. So you've got to be looking to step forward from that. But from Jason's point of view,
if we were to finish with more than 5 wins, it is a bounce back. But if we weren't to finish with, if we were to be 5 or less wins, I wouldn't be it would be disappointing in the sense of you don't want to be basically the whipping boys of any division, but you know, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world because you know that, you know, you'll be able to pick out what you need. Maybe if Stafford leaves, we can then, you know, there is the
Getting the
chance that
Caleb
we
Williams sweepstakes.
the
It's for
Caleb-
sale.
you know,
The pick is
So-
for sale.
Yeah,
you know,
you have to be giving up like the 2032 first round pick, something like that.
We'll take it.
Boys, this is it's been a blast. It's been great getting back together again. I've loved this.
Love it.
Missed you guys. We should do this
Absolutely.
again. Give
Soon.
maybe give the mini rookie camps a bit of a run through, and maybe look in a few weeks' time, see where we are, and get back together in and start
tomorrow,
getting
haven't we?
season. Yeah, schedule
Oh,
release.
that's right. That's right.
International series games got dropped today, and what do you do? UK fans have been treated to back-to-back Jags games, aren't we?
Yeah, you guys got a home team in the Jags. That's nice.
Yeah,
They've been talking about that for ages, haven't they? And having the Jags play twice. So, yeah,
it's a big. I suppose it's a big thing for the NFL because it's a chance to show the interest, I suppose, because it's the same team back-to-back weeks. How does it sell out? And yes, okay, you know, Buffalo are normally the home team the week after, but it's Jags and Jags, and you know it's a hard sell for a team, a bunch of fans like the Niners fans. You know, 10 years and counting since we've seen our team. It looked like this might have been the year because you know we had the Jags on the slate as an away game. It was a shame, but you know we're kind of looking at it like kind of as an NFC West. You know, we are doing a lot of traveling, as you know, all of our teams are doing a lot of air miles this year. So it's to add that in, it probably was a little bit too much. But, you know, we're looking for the silver lining that may mean a home game at London next year. That's kind of what what we're hoping, because
this year we'll get to see a running masterclass from the Ravens and the Titans.
I mean,
Yeah.
that depends on who's on that Titans team by the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It might not be there.
I mean, I'm going to be gutted if the chance to go and see Derrick Henry and he's not there.
it's not there. No.
There's a really good chance the Eagles were really close to getting him from the Titans. So I mean, I don't know that he's on their roster by the time that game hits, because that was week 6, I think, right? 6 or 7.
6 or 7. No,
The
a bit later that one, I think.
October.
Maybe week 8.
Week 9, because I know there was a couple week gap in there. So it's like 4 through 7, and then it was like 9 and 10 or something like that.
Yeah,
But
we have ours is I think the games that we have are on the 1st of October and then the 15th, and the Ravens Titans.
I got you. I mean, realistically, if it's anything after 6, then you know he's probably not going to be there.
It's probably not going to be there. Yeah.
Like,
And it'll be interesting. I suppose the Ravens game would be interesting because, you know, the Lamar signing, they've picked up quite a few. You know, they look like they might not be run heavy, so they could be an interesting one to watch. But
New offensive coordinator.
new offensive
I would
coordinator.
expect them to beat up on the Titans.
Oh yeah,
That's
You never
always
know, we
fun.
might get to watch Will Levis.
Yeah, yay, I guess. Like,
I mean we might get. I mean we get to watch Bijan and Etienne, two great running backs. That could be it.
That'll be interesting.
it will be cool to see how good Bijan can be.
I'm surprised about it. I think he's going to be great, but I thought Al Jair was pretty damn good for the Falcons last year as well. So
I thought Tyler was their future. So yeah, I was kind of shocked too, given the amount of holes that they have. So, but hey, what do I know?
Maybe they're just running split backs. They're just they gave up on the offensive passing altogether. They're just
give it to these two guys.
The thing with Bijan as well is the fact that his pass catching ability is actually really good as well.
Yeah.
So he's not
Well,
only
they don't throw it to
really-
tight ends over there, so they got to throw it to somebody.
Yeah.
Well, he was the biggest bust in fantasy football last year, wasn't he? Whoa.
Well, it's hard to say. Is he a bust or is he not getting opportunities? I mean, he's a bust in as far as like what the stat sheet says when the game's over. Like, holy cow! But
Yeah,
is he getting the opportunities?
He had Mariota as a quarterback, and Mariota's not a throwing quarterback. He's a running quarterback. So, you know, I think give him maybe with Desmond Ridder, if they can put some reliance on him. I think he's more of a throwing quarterback. I think he'll that he'll need that outlet of Kyle Pitts. So I think he might get used.
Well, will he need it with Aljair and Robinson behind him? I mean, surely you just hand it to those guys and let them do their thing.
Maybe one of them can throw it to the tight end. Yeah.
Hey, it worked for McCaffrey, right?
Yeah.
Boys, it's been fun.
Didn't seem like
Absolutely. Next time.
Yeah, we're delving into it, right, guys? This has been fantastic. We'll catch up and we'll set something up for a few weeks' time. Until then, this has been a blast seeing you guys, and I'll speak to you guys soon.
Yep. Have a good one, guys.
Sounds good.
Take
See
it
ya.
easy.
Yeah.